markets, well, we had pretty much even Stevens in terms of advancing to decline ratio. However, the stock that was in focus was Sammaan Capital. And a clarification is awaited from the management. Stock ending down by close to 13%. It could probably go into the F&O ban as well. So clarification on whether or not that $1 billion deal is, gone into a bit of a flux, or does it see the light of day? That's the most important trigger. Valuation-wise, we know that's cheap. That's the biggest casualty in today's trade. And in terms of winners, Tenneco, that was the beautiful-looking stock today, was up more than 20%. Fantastic listing out there, ending high with a gain of around 23%. And the other one that finally the law of gravity did catch up was Groww, was down close to around 10% in today's trading session with pending sell orders as well. Valuations went out of whack, and today the large sellers did come in there as well. But otherwise, a good trading session from a bullish perspective. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up on this edition of Closing Bell. Don't go anywhere. The team of Markets Forward comes up next.
The market stages a sharp recovery with the Nifty reclaiming 26,000 and the Nifty Bank reaching a record high. Frontline indices rise nearly 1% from their lows, driven by gains in key sectors including banking and IT.
The rally in Groww is a result of low float-driven short squeeze and positions being auctioned on NSE, reports Money Control. The stock ends in a 10% lower circuit as the frenzy fades.
Tenneco Clean Air makes a strong debut on D Street, lists at 27% premium to the issue price. The management says premiumization will aid growth.
And the Supreme Court questions the quote-unquote friendly approach by the CBI and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs in probing allegations against the erstwhile Indiabulls Housing Finance, now known as Sammaan Capital. The Apex Court pushes CBI to file an FIR, saying that it will strengthen the hands of the Enforcement Directorate. The Sammaan Capital stock ends over 10% lower.
Shares of KEC International dropped nearly 10% after Power Grid imposes a 9-month ban on new contracts over contractual violations. However, existing projects executed by KEC will not be impacted. Hello and welcome to Markets Forward, your go-to show where we get you a snapshot of everything that went by in the day in terms of the trading action and prepare you for all the action that's coming up ahead in tomorrow's session. Lots of data points and stock analysis coming your way. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay and with me is Hormaz Patakia. Hi, Hormaz.
Hi, Surabhi. And if you were in KBC, you would have said Pehla Padav par for the Nifty. Now you have to head towards the next level. Crossed 26,000 today, sustained above it, closed above the intraday highs of both Monday and Tuesday. So that's a positive as well. The index now moving towards the 26,104 mark.
No, absolutely. Indeed, it's been heartening, right? Because after such a long time, third day running, we can say that India outperformed global markets. And we haven't used that phrase too much in all of 2025. But yes, as the world grapples with AI jitters and worries about whether NVIDIA's numbers will keep investors happy or not, today was one more day where against, again, a red sort of a Asian backdrop, we managed to rise from the morning lows. The morning was actually a quiet start, but then the Nifty kept on marching higher and it closed pretty much at the day's high. The only niggling worry or the issue you can say is that mid-caps did not fare as well. The mid-cap index underperformed the Nifty. But within the mid-cap space, there are lots of newsmakers, like you just heard in our headlines, and we'll tell you more about these stocks as we go along. Well, here's the lineup. This is what all we're covering today. We'll put the spotlight on Groww. Those shares finally slipping in trade after a 6-day rally. Tenneco Clean Air was today's listing. We'll tell you more about it. And then, as we just mentioned, KEC International slipping on issues in terms of their relationship with Power Grid being banned for a period of 9 months. And last but not the least, of course, as always, we get you geared up for tomorrow's trading action. But for now, it's over to Vivek for the movers and shakers of the day.
Well, thank you so much for that. Well, you could call it a session where you actually saw very sharp recovery, especially in the second half of the trading session amongst quite a few of the names. But then once again, you did see selling pressure emerge, especially in the last half hour or so in the NBFC pack. Well, in terms of stocks and sectors that did quite well, look at the entire Nifty IT space. Clearly, very strong activity over there, very strong buying interest. Infosys also aided by the buyback date news, along with that, a whole host of other names like Persistent, HCL, all of them sharply higher in the session. The other stock on the radar was Latent View, one of the top gainers as far as the NSE 500 index was concerned, and on very good volumes. Latent View Analytics managed to end the session sharply higher. Along with that, PB Fintech or Policy Bazaar, that was the other stock on the radar. Remember, this particular stock has sold off quite significantly in the recent time, but in the last couple of trading sessions has made quite a bit of a sharp recovery, over 2.5% higher. And auto ancillary names, some hopes of maybe an India-US trade deal is something that has led to a little bit of recovery as far as auto ancillaries are concerned. Bharat Forge higher by over 3%. On the other hand, quite a few laggards. Groww, like you mentioned, today taking a bit of a knock, down 10%. The other stock, of course, KEC International, one of the largest clients for the company, which is Power Grid, has barred the company for the period of 9 months from going ahead and bidding in T&D contracts. That stock ended low by 9%. Waaree Energies income tax searches at company premises, something that the street didn't like. Biocon, a downgrade, during the course of the session that came in from Citi, is something that led to a bit of a sell-off. And lastly, Sammaan Capital, legal overhang on this particular name, that particular stock down by over 12.5% in the session today.
Indeed, as the stock of the last hour of today's session was Sammaan Capital. Vivek, thank you for that summarization of the top movers in today's trade. But the other big mover today was Groww, and for a change, the move was on the downside. After 5 days of gravity-defying moves, where the stock had gained almost 90% from its issue price, the stock was in a 10% lower circuit. It started off lower, and then within the first half an hour, the stock fell to a 10% lower circuit, and it stayed that way. Now, what has happened is, of course, earlier today, the price band for the stock was revised to 10% from 20% earlier. And as of closing, there are 1.65 crore pending sell orders still on the NSE for Groww at this price, and no pending buy orders on the corresponding side. Now, what happened yesterday, of course, was Money Control reporting that over 30 lakh shares were sent into the auction on the NSE, which analysts that they spoke to say that it is an unusually large quantity. Now, why did that happen? It happened because there were traders who had shorted the stock in anticipation that this post-listing rally would cool off. That didn't happen. The stock kept moving higher, and now during settlement, when they could not arrange for the delivery of those shares that they shorted, the stock, those number of shares had to be moved into the delivery. Now, there are enough and more concerns that still lie ahead for Groww. Valuations aside, the valuations is a conversation that we'll keep having. But other than that, the fact that there is very little free float in the market, which explains the frenzied moves on both sides. There is very little, most of it with the promoter, most of it is locked in as well. So that is one. There has always been a sharp run up in the first 5 sessions, and we've seen historically that stocks that move up very quickly after listing, they cool off eventually over a period of time. Urban Company is a case in point, as is Lenskart. Of course, we're not saying that the same will happen to Groww, but of course that being a case in point as well. Now, what happens next? The first big trigger for Groww ahead is Friday, when they come out with results for the second quarter, the first after listing, and then on the 10th of December, when the 1 month shareholding lock-in comes into play. That's where around 140 million shares will be freed up for trade. That's just 2% of outstanding, but still, we'll see if there is more supply that comes in. So there's a 10% circuit for Groww. We'll see where the stock goes tomorrow.
Absolutely. I think you've laid out very, very important triggers. The one is, on the fundamentals, we'll have to see if their profitability is really, moving along the expected path or not. But yes, that 1 month lock-in ending, to see who stays, who decides to check out, and what happens. So a lot of these technical factors will become self-explanatory over the next few weeks. Well, let's bring in our experts on the show. We have Mayuresh Joshi joining in from William O'Neill, and we also have Shrikant Chauhan with us from Kotak Securities. Gentlemen, good to have you on the show. Before we talk about Groww, Shrikant, let me open with you. Quick thoughts on the Nifty. We are finally, going against the tide, finally outperforming, and now almost back at 26,100. Do you think the Nifty can take out this level this time around?
Yeah, good afternoon, Survi. Good afternoon, Harmas. So, yes, this time it is very clear that the markets are heading higher. Despite there was global uncertainties, we are seeing good amount of relative strength in our markets. Supports have been shifted from the levels of 25,500 to 25,800. And today, when there was weakness in the first half, in the second half, we saw equal amount of buying interest. And the rally is backed by broad-based buying in the market, BFSI as well as IT. Both these sectors participated in this market, and it closed above the mark of 26,000 for the second consecutive day. So broadly, I am of the view that this market is clearly indicating us that we are heading higher, and this time the market is on the verge of crossing its all-time highest level of 26,200, 300 sort of levels. So the maximum retracement that we can see in the coming few days could be around 26,500 sort of levels, and any decline, any dip will be an opportunity for create any long positions.
Any opportunity, any dip is an opportunity to create longs. But Mayuresh, for Groww, has been in conversation almost every single day since it has listed. Now, would it be fair to say that the post-listing euphoria has finally died down, and now we get back to reality, wait for numbers, await more clarity, and then see what kind of a multiple the market wants to ascribe the stock?
Oh, absolutely, Harmas. Afternoon to you. I think two things. One, I think in terms of the move on the stock itself, I think quite exceptional that you've probably seen. But with a lot of these recent IPOs which have opened up, I think the first number, specifically after listing, becomes extremely critical. And therefore, I think the numbers which will come through on Friday will deemed to be a defining factor for Groww. Obviously, I think the long-term story stays. But as we spoke yesterday as well, I think on yesterday's date and price, I think Groww had a market cap which was more than the exchange platform BSE itself. So I think somewhere these excesses need to get balanced out, which is probably happening in terms of the price that we're probably seeing. But numbers, and again, I think the 1 month lock-in, which opens in December, I think they will be defining for Groww as we move ahead.
Indeed, and that is what we'll be keeping an eye out for, firstly for Friday and then for the 10th of December. But of course, as we mentioned, the stock of the last hour of trade today was Sammaan Capital. The stock fell 13% after the Apex Court pushed the CBI to file an FIR saying that it will strengthen the hands of the Enforcement Directorate. The court also questioned what it called quote-unquote double standards by market regulator SEBI. Ashmit is joining in with more details. Ashmit, take us through the court action.
Well, this is, of course, more scrutiny headed perhaps Sammaan Capital's way, especially on account of today's Supreme Court proceedings. The Supreme Court was hearing a petition that has been filed by Citizens Whistleblower Forum, which is an NGO. This was first filed before the Delhi High Court. They lost the case in the Delhi High Court. Then they moved to the Apex Court. It was pending here. And today, essentially, while seeking a status quo of where things stand, where the investigation stands, the Supreme Court had strong words to share. First and foremost, as far as the CBI is concerned, the Supreme Court made stern observations that it was taken aback by the flexible approach, the friendly approach of the CBI as far as these investigations are concerned. This is something that the Apex Court didn't look very kindly on, nudging the CBI to go ahead and to conduct a thorough investigation, to in fact register an FIR as well. That's, of course, as far as CBI is concerned. Also in the works was a meeting. The ED was proposing that let's convene a meeting of all stakeholders, of all investigating agencies. SEBI was a little hesitant, which again invited strong comments from the Apex Court. The Supreme Court questioned what it called were double standards by SEBI, saying that it's not able to understand the hesitancy by the market regulator, especially when the top court itself is granting SEBI the right, the jurisdiction to investigate in this matter. As far as ED is concerned, they clarified their position that they've done their bit. They've also filed complaints before the EOWs of Delhi, of Mumbai. Those complaints haven't been registered. And subsequently, there is a direction that has now come from the Supreme Court, which asks for more clarity. So clearly, all the stakeholders, all the investigating agencies, the regulators being pulled up by the Apex Court, the Supreme Court asking questions as to what is the status, asking for more details. The hearing in this case, we understand, will resume on December 17th.
Okay, this is going to be a very, very important issue to track. Ashwin, thank you very much. Clearly, the market quite disturbed with the developments taking place in court today. Let's move on then. Talk about today's new listing. Tenneco Clean Air listed on the street with a 27% premium to the issue price. The 3,600 crore rupee issue was subscribed nearly 60 times, led by strong demand from institutional investors. In a conversation with CNBC-TV18, CEO Arvind Chandrasekaran said that premiumization will be a key growth driver for the company. And he also added that exports, which are currently at 5% of sales, they're poised for a significant uptick.
We have very strong tailwinds. So one is we are sitting on the India Inc. story, right? So already 4 to 6% of growth we're going to see simply because of India's growth and the market growth rate. But beyond that, we have 3 strong tailwinds. One is content per vehicle growth from legislation, emissions legislation, and premiumization of shock absorbers. So from a clean air powertrain business, the legislation will help us, whether it's BS6 going to BS7, CAFE norms coming in, TREM 4 going to TREM 5, or on the premiumization side, because SUVs are getting premiumized very rapidly, and so the move from static to dynamic suspension is also happening very rapidly. So we expect to get a nice boost from growth from just pure content per vehicle increase.
Tenneco Clean Air, the new listing, the new kid on the block today. But Mayuresh, you heard of the recent developments taking place at Sammaan Capital. The street, as Surabhi was also highlighting a few minutes ago, that there's assumption that everything was hunky-dory now after all the headwinds that it faced. But there is a recent spanner that has come in, and that's too after a marquee investor has invested such a large sum in the company.
Absolutely, and that probably creates a lot of headwinds, right, Thomas? And therefore, I think what really comes out of all this, if I'm not wrong, Ashwin mentioned, I think the next hearing might be somewhere in the middle of December. And therefore, I think as all the regulatory agencies start probably probing a tad bit more into this, it does create that element of uncertainty. As far as time is concerned, obviously, I think in terms of the investors that have probably come on board, what really comes through in this investigations, whether it will be a time-bound process, is something to be watched out for. And therefore, anything like this which happens for any corporate, I think it does create to be a major overhang.
So we need to now wait for more clarity on this particular issue for sure. Let's move on. One more major newsmaker of the day was KEC International. Stock was down 10% after Power Grid banned the company from new tenders for the next 9 months. The state-run power company cited breach in contracts by KEC as being the reason behind its decision. KEC said that the order doesn't impact its ongoing projects. Vinny has more details. Vinny.
Yes, so KEC International was the stock in focus today and under pressure, obviously, because they've been barred by Power Grid for a period of 9 months starting from 18th November 2025. Mainly, there was a case that was going on since March 2025 regarding some contractual provisions, bribery investigations, and there were some arrests made by Power Grid employee as well as KEC International. So because of those concerns, we're seeing that, now they've been barred from participating any new tenders that could come in from Power Grid or any new orders that come in from Power Grid from 18th of November. So an important update there. Now the company is saying that yes, they are not seeing any impact coming in of this on the company's executing orders that are already in place from Power Grid. So they're saying no concern on that front. Now, in terms of order intake, they've given a detail that, as of YTD performance, FY26 order intake is at around 17,000 crores. Of that, Power Grid share is 4%. Even in terms of order book, 39,300 crores was the order book as on Q2 FY26, of which the share of Power Grid in that is at 15%. So still a large amount. But the company is saying that they are not expecting any material impact in terms of ongoing operations or financial position of the company. That is what we'll be keeping an eye out on, but the street is not too happy with that, and analysts are not too happy with this barring that has come in from Power Grid for KEC International, and that is why the stock was under pressure today.
Vinny, thank you for that update. Shrikant, on the charts, KEC International, do you believe that there has been a breakdown from important levels? The stock has been an underperformer. It's down in 16 out of the last 19 sessions. But what are the important levels to watch now on the downside?
Yeah, absolutely. What you're saying is right. Since last almost 6 months, if we see the trend of the stock, then it has been under a lot of selling pressure and it has broken all its important level when it started trading below the mark of 750, and today it closed comfortably below the same. So while looking at the entire setup of the stock, I am of the view that the stock is again heading for its immediate lowest level, which was around 625, 630. We can expect further more weakness, but there I'm seeing the stock to consolidate and to steady. So at current levels, it is advisable, if there is any bounce back, it is advisable to reduce some positions. The stock is heading lower.
The stock is heading lower, but yes, that's what is KEC International, 9% lower in today's session. But it was the day that belonged to the IT names, and surprisingly on the positive side, despite the sell-off that you have been witnessing on Wall Street. You look at LTI, Mindtree, HCL, Tech, Infosys, all of them ending with gains of over or close to 4%. And the leading the rally in IT stocks, it was really the anti-AI sentiment. Now, the consensus that is emerging is that India, with its lack of AI plays, is fairly insulated from what is happening on Wall Street. Mayuresh, do you concur with that? Somebody's pain is somebody's gain. The valuations that are unraveling right now on Wall Street, does that behave or act as a sentiment positive for our own IT stocks?
It does, Hormas, for selective mid-cap IT stocks. However, for large-cap IT stocks, I think what will probably come out from NVIDIA's commentary is going to be how is the capex growth that is coming through from hyperscalers, whether it's Meta, Google, Microsoft, because they all continue to contribute quite significantly as far as AI-dominated platform and growth is concerned. Obviously, I think the development of AI chips that is probably happening, the agentic AI agents that are probably now getting deployed, and more platforms that are coming through. I think our large cap IT companies, which traditionally have the outsourcing model need to scale up quite significantly, and that too fast. Both time and cost overruns are going to be extremely crucial at this point of time, and how to avoid that. And therefore, I think we are lagging behind as far as this entire ecosystem is concerned. A few mid-cap IT companies are probably starting to get there, but I think it's still a long way to go. So I think who's gain, who's lost, I think next 1.5 years will probably define that. But we need to pull our socks up and get into this game very, very aggressively and in a very agile fashion.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Good to get all that perspective from both you, Mayuresh, as well as Srikanth. We'll take a quick break, come back on the other side, and we'll get you the top corporate voices along with the key events to watch tomorrow.
Welcome back. Onto the top corporate voices of the day. Vinati Organics is looking at a strong FY26, according to CEO Vinati Mutreja, who told CNBC-TV18 that the company is expecting around 15% volume growth, revenues rising 10 to 12%, and margins should stay close to the 27% mark.
The CFO of Electronics Mart said that the GST rate cut has triggered a noticeable rise in TV demand. The company is targeting double-digit growth for the full year and expects 30 to 35% expansion in the NCR cluster. On AC sales, the company adds that meaningful post-GST demand will likely emerge in the fourth quarter.
And before we wrap for the day, we bring you some key market events to watch out for. Upasana is standing by with some of those. Upasana.
Well, first up, let me start with the global economic cues. US will be reporting its FOMC meeting minutes will be out tomorrow, even initial jobless claims data and even existing home sales data. And mind you, the most important that we'll be watching out for is the Nvidia third quarter earnings that will be coming out tonight post 12 a.m. Japan will be reporting its adjusted trade balance data, so we'll be keeping an eye out on that as well. Now let us look at the key stocks in news on the back of corporate action. Stocks like Sun TV, Container Corp and Natco Pharma will be in focus as all these stocks go ex-dividend tomorrow. Infosys is the next one on our radar as the 18,000 crore buyback opens tomorrow, that is on November 28th. On the IPO front, Fujiyama Power Systems will be listing on exchanges tomorrow. Mind you that the issue size for this is 828 crore with a fresh issue of 600 crore and OFS of 228 crore. Now moving on towards the other important events for tomorrow, FM Nirmala Sitharaman pre-budget consultation with industry stakeholders will take place tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. And lastly, mind you that the Morgan Stanley's 24th annual Asia Pacific Summit ends tomorrow, which has started today. So all in all, looks like quite an eventful day tomorrow.
Okay, all right, Upasana, thank you very much for all of those details. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Markets Forward. Many thanks for watching. We'll be back with more news and updates.